Geothermal heating. What a great way to do indoor conditioning and heat and cool a home. Today we have Jay Egg to talk about. He's an industry expert on geothermal. We met with him last year to talk about highlights and overview of the thing, and I figured I would have my project all specced out and I'm still in a dilemma. So Jay, help me make my decision. What kind of equipment should I do?
Wait, just a minute. You mean you don't have your geothermal system in yet?
I do not. We were a little premature on last conversation, and now we have some temporary heat with the radiant going, but I don't have my final equipment yet.
Dave, I got to talk to you about this. You got to do geothermal. You want to know why?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to tell you why. Now, all of the things that we talked about last year include you get to eliminate your outdoor condenser, which you need in air conditioning no matter what.
Yes, definitely.
You get to eliminate all the noise that's associated with your outdoor condenser. And with the world making such a big deal about greenhouse gas emissions, you get to get rid of your combustion heating. And you get to say, I'm greener than ever because I don't have combustion heating, because you're working off of a geothermal source, which is your heat source and your heat sink.
Right.
So, and I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, Jay, do you know how much a well costs?
Jay, do you know how much a well costs?
No, I have no idea.
No.
I have no idea how much a well is going to cost you, but I can guarantee you it will pay back. It might be 5 years, it might be 4 years, it might be 8 years, but it'll pay back in energy savings. And then at that point at which you need to replace that outdoor condenser for your air conditioner, which most people, 15 years is about the most they get out of one of those. Your geothermal heat pump that's all indoors is going, hey, I'm just getting going. I've got another 5 or 10 years on my life because there's nothing outside to weather away.
Oh, okay. So I guess you got to look at the big picture instead of the macro, and that's it's all not just that cost or whatever. Now you were talking about wells. Is there other ways to do it?
There are.
How else could I do it?
Okay. I'm trying to remember your property, but if you had a body of water nearby, you could do a pond loop.
Okay.
If you have a good aquifer underneath where you could drill a water well pretty easily, you could do 2 wells. One would be a supply well and one would be a return well. That's called a Class 5 thermal exchange.
Okay.
So that's sometimes less expensive than closed loop. Or if we look at your loads and the thermal conductivity of your soil, you may only need 2 closed loop bores. Do you know how many tons your house is?
It's 2.5 tons.
Probably closed loop is going to be really good for you because you're probably only going to need 1 or 2 bores anyway once we do a quick thermal conductivity analysis.
Well, what was I thought there was another standing column. What
Yes.
is that?
You totally caught me. Standing column. In New York, for example, St. Patrick's Cathedral just had a bunch of standing column wells put right in the sidewalks, right there in the middle of Manhattan. So it's very little footprint. What they do with a standing column is they drill nice and deep, and they pull water from the bottom of the column, and they drop it in the top, and it kind of swirls back down and transfers. You can get a lot of heat transfer out of a standing column.
Wow.
Most of the time in residences, you might not need that, but that's for tight footprints.
Okay.
Nice and high capacity.
Right. Well, not to be too specific, because the engineer was talking about that kind of way of doing it. Do we pay a penalty on pump horsepower because it's treated more like I got to lift that water up versus a closed loop? Or
that is a brilliant question. I wish I had a picture, but I'm going to paint a quick picture. With a standing column, you have maybe a 5 or 6 inch bore, and in the middle of the bore we put what's called a porter shroud, which is a tube, it's like a drinking straw that goes all the way to the bottom. So the pump gets set up at the top at the mean water level, but it pulls from the bottom of the cup without much lift. And then when it injects back into the well on the outside of the straw. So the water has to travel down and back up.
Wow. Well, I think of lift from the bottom up to the top, 400 feet down, and oh my God,
Your mean water level, once you drill a hole in that area, I have no idea, but I'm sure it's under 100 feet.
No, okay.
Everywhere
great.
Seems to be close to that.
Equalizes up to that.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's food for thought on that. Now the other thing is, just recently there's been some changes in government rebates. How is that affecting the industry, or what story are we trying to tell? Or
Well, the federal tax credits have gone bye-bye. We had them from 2009 to the end of 2016. It's 2017. there are no more federal tax credits. What we are seeing is a huge effort on the part of states. For example, New York State and a lot of surrounding states, especially in New England, but New York State has an organization, a government organization called NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, that is allocating incredible amounts of effort into doing a statewide geothermal program. They are sold on geothermal as an organization. They want to see this continue in New York.
Well, we know it's great, you know, and then also I also see some of the utilities.
Oh, yes.
Not only too, because that part hasn't disappeared. They still offer, you know. PSEG on Long Island had me come up and speak just November, and that utility company, that electric company, 100% behind geothermal, supporting it any way they can. I must have spoken to about 600 business owners there about geothermal. They had a packed house. Wow. Well, you know, it seems like from my end, you know, I always think water-based equipment, you know, whether it be generation and distribution. But what do you think in the industry the mix is? Because a lot of guys, you say geo, they instantly say airside, you know?
Right.
It's just like...
Do you know what? I am so with you on this. Every time I can, I'm pushing hydronic, because the fact of the matter is, don't let anybody ever tell you different. The best way to move BTUs around is in water. You know that.
Right.
And I know that. People try to pump refrigerant around a building or push it through air. If you can do a radiant floor, that's the most energy efficient heating you can do. If you can do a radiant cooling, you can even do better, but you need a little bit of circulation and ventilation air.
Dehumidification.
So, yeah, for dehumidification.
Yeah. No, I've been doing radiant since the 80s, so that was a given. You know, there's going to be a hydronic radiant component to it. So to me, when we say geo, I always think differently, water to water. You know, what else is there? But actually, it's a smaller part of the overall industry, isn't it?
I would say most people, when they think of air conditioning and heating, they go, I have a duct system, I want forced air heat, I want forced air cool. They don't even know what they're missing with radiant heat. And so I think that we need to push that and offer that more as contractors, as engineers, as architects. Hey, have you thought about radiant heating? It's a really good way to do things, right?
So have you seen any trends in the industry? You know, we talked a little bit about, you know, the way that the government and some of the funding is, but what about on products? Have you seen a change? Or?
I am seeing some great trends where more master plan communities are coming together. Master plan communities, and there's one more thing, and there are a lot of them coming up.
Right.
There's one more thing that's really amazing. It's working in both New York State and Ontario, and that's just your neighbor up to the north, up in the Northeast. The gas company has petitioned the Public Service Commission to become a geothermal utility. And why? Why? Because they have carbon tax penalties, they call it cap and trade, and they see themselves as being put out of business. And they go, well, we better get in the geothermal business then, because the only way to heat in this cold environment without combustion heating or straight electric is geothermal.
Right.
And so we see gas companies going, hey, maybe we should get in the, we do piping anyway, let us pipe.
So is that more like a district heating scheme or something like your centralized plant?
A centralized geothermal loop that's distributed to many houses in a neighborhood.
That almost sounds like a cogen plant to me, where we're producing electricity, the byproduct, they will use that, the heat, to put into this system.
Well, and they're in the energy business. If they don't catch the customers before they put in a geothermal loop, they lose that customer forever, because then their energy's free. And so it's a pretty smart thing on the utility side too.
Wow, you know, you don't think about it. You look at one little segment and do that. Any other takeaways have you seen lately?
I would say to people, geothermal can be expensive, first cost, but don't despair. Always take a look at it. You might be surprised how little it costs. You may be spending $15,000 on an air conditioner anyway. Maybe for 20 or 25, if you have to pull a little bit more money out of the bank, you have a permanent solution. Don't disregard it just because your neighbor says, oh, it's too expensive and this and that and the other. Check it out yourself. It's a proven technology that works every time if it's applied properly.
Well, that was awesome. You know, I got to get on board here. I got to make it happen. You know, we just got to finalize this whole mechanical system. We got hydronic part, but the heat source little part isn't there. So, you know, that was great information, Jay. Really appreciate your time and coming and giving us that insight. You know, true industry expert and involved in legislation and everything else related to that. So, really some good takeaways. So. Stay tuned. It's awesome. You'll see what evolves with my house and what we decide to do for that heat source. And hopefully it's going to be Geo. But again, you know, we've got the master plan already in place, all the piping, all that scenario. Now it's just the generation
The
equipment.
source side, yeah.
Yeah, so awesome. Thank you for joining us.